Hi, I'm Charles Lawson and you're watching Mind to Market Media. Today we'll be doing the much anticipated part 2 of our unboxing of the 3 kilos of color changed Diaspore rough. This time around we actually have some pieces cut, so we have around 60 pieces I believe in here that have all been cut from the same material that you can see in front of me here. So if you watched the last video you might remember seeing some of these pieces, and especially these 2 pieces here. These were 2 pieces that I just could not bring myself to actually let them cut these pieces. So we've kept these ones as some nice little specimens here. This one especially, just with the intergrowth of some, what I'm quite sure is a hematite crystal there, growing with the Diaspore, but very cool piece with this one. Have the nice little herringbone, little fishtail twin there. But keep an eye on these ones and see how they compare to the pieces that we've had cut. So let's get into it and see what we've got. Okay, I think we've got this now. Let's see if we can get it open. Oh, there it comes. And there we are. Okay, nice and well packed. But what have we got? Okay, so there's still a lot more to come, but this is the first lot of the cutting, so I'm quite excited to see how this has turned out. Oh, there we go. Looks pretty good already. What have we got in there? Okay, so we have parcels of shapes. So we have 3 mixed ones. We got a couple of round cuts and a square cut in there. We've got some nice cushion cuts in there as well. We've got a few ovals. Now that's something kind of surprising when you're cutting colored gemstones, especially more rare and more high value pieces. Generally you expect to see a lot of oval cuts because oval generally gives you the best yield. But as you can see here, the next parcel is some emerald cuts, but we've got 19 emerald cuts and 22 cushion cuts. So these are not the most common cuts that you would normally see in colored stones. So with this kind of material, you can see that, you know, obviously the bladed crystals are going to lend themselves to, you know, these more straight edged cuts rather than something a curved cut like the oval cut. So yeah, it's not often that you'll see that big a disparity between oval and like emerald and cushion, because normally they're all just cut oval because the pieces are randomly shaped. So you'll usually get the best yield from a oval cut. So yeah, but you can definitely see why with a crystal like this, you know, you've got those straight edges. You probably are going to be cutting a lot of cushions and a lot of emerald cuts from this kind of material. All right, so let's get into these. Oh, and we got 7 little pear cuts in there. Nice little stones there. But why don't we start with the largest parcel first? So we'll put those ones aside. We'll grab ourselves a tray. And let's have a look. Actually, first thing I'm going to do is put on my nice white glove so I don't get my fingerprints all over the stones. Pop that one on there. Okay, what have we got? I'll open them all up and then we can have a quick look. Okay, so it looks like there's a little bit of color variation in these ones, but I'll pop this here while we're opening them up and you can start to see, oops, yeah, we can start to see some of the color coming through between comparing the rough and the cut. Although that one, maybe the brown is throwing it off a bit. Let's try this one. That might be a little bit better. You guys can see that. Okay, so as you can see as well, pretty much everything here, apart from one piece so far, is all rectangular cushion cuts. So as you would imagine, when you're getting long pieces like this, chances are you're probably going to be cutting a longer piece rather than a square piece. But oh, there's another one. So every now and then we get the square cuts, but personally I quite like the square cuts. Maybe it's because they're a little bit harder to find. But yeah, we'll see how many we can actually find in here. We might get some matched pairs. It's kind of close, but we'll see how we go. I've also noticed that with some of these ones, we tend to actually get a little bit more color change in the lighter colors than we do in the deeper greens. Now, with something like color change Diaspore, as we know, it's also called Zultanite and Czarite. In the name, it is color change Diaspore, but you might be more tempted at times to consider these to be more of a color shift than a color change. So basically, there's just a slight change in the color or a shift in the color as opposed to a full change of color. But hopefully, we'll be able to see some good color change in these ones. I'll hit them with the light at the end with the incandescent and the daylight equivalent, and hopefully, we'll get some nice color change. But I'll let you guys look at these ones and see if you can figure out which one's going to change the most when we actually put them under different lighting conditions. Okay, now we're almost done with these ones. I'm just going to actually move that guy out of the way there. No, I apologize that I have left my tweezers off the table here, so. Okay, so there we go. This is the first lot of our cutting. These are all the cushion cuts. I think we've got some quite nice pieces there. Now, as you could probably see there, the lighter stones do seem to be giving us a bit more color change. And you can just, we have mixed lighting in the studio here, so this is going to be giving us a bit of a mixed color. But one thing you probably do notice as well is the fact that we get quite high dispersion from the Diaspore. Now, you'll get other stones in similar colors to these, something like the tourmalines, or you might even get some beryls approaching this sort of color, but you're not going to get the same kind of dispersion that you'll get. So we've got really nice fire actually coming out of all these pieces here, which does set them aside from, you know, some of the other sort of varieties of gemstones that will have these sort of pale greens in them. Obviously not going to be quite the same as something like a demantoid garnet, but still very nice fire in these ones. And the polish is looking quite good. I don't think we've got any windows in these, so that's also nice. I think the tolerance for windowed cutting, or, you know, less precise cutting, is definitely, you know, the market is demanding more precision cutting these days. So always nice to see very well cut pieces, and also nice to see so many cushion cuts. But let's move on to the next packet, which is the emerald cuts. Now, I'm quite partial to emerald cuts myself, so I'm quite excited to see these ones. All right, let's have a look. Ooh, okay, first stone, nice big one, look at that. Let's take this one out. I think, well, this is the largest stone we have so far. Now you can probably start to see some of that dispersion coming through on this one. And funnily enough, like with diamonds, I've noticed that when you try to get them on video, usually the best dispersion that you'll see in the piece is almost always when the stone is out of focus. So you get lots of that sort of rainbow fire coming through, but once the stone comes into focus, you kind of start to lose that fire. But a nice, long, elegant piece here. Look at that polish. That's definitely a nice piece, that one. Now, actually, I don't know if you noticed the one that I've just put down next to it here. You can actually see there's a bit of color change between that one. You can actually start to see a little bit more of the, more like a pinky purple appearing in that one, sort of shining through the green. But because we are in mixed lighting, it's never going to be quite the same as using a proper incandescent and a proper daylight equivalent. Okay, last one. Alrighty. Now again, you can see here, we've only really got, what, 1, 2, 3. 3 that are, you know, getting close to a square cut. But again, some very nice pieces in there. I think from these ones, yeah, we can see a little bit of color change in these, and you know, all well cut, good polish. We've got a couple of slightly eye visible inclusions in, or maybe one, yeah, maybe just the one. So always nice to see them nice and clean like that. The couple that do have slight inclusions, the way they've been cut is to basically place the inclusions, which will usually be like a cleavage plane. So I don't think we've got any cleavage planes showing in these. Wait, no. So I don't know if you can see on this one here. So if we get this one and we get that to reflect in the light just right, you can get that one. Oh, there we go. Now you can see that is not a polished face. That is just a cleavage plane. So basically that has just split along that face. So basically sometimes the stone will split while you're cutting it. That split might already be there, but if you have that split with the top of the stone like this, with the split basically going perpendicular to the table, to the top of the stone, then you're not really going to see it. It's when you start to have the split a little bit, you know, angled, you know, not quite perpendicular to the table, that's when you're going to start to see it, because you're going to start to get reflections bouncing off that cleavage plane. So what you really want to do is have it perfectly perpendicular to the table. You could potentially have it perfectly parallel as well, but then you're going to start to see any features that are, you know, stuck inside that cleavage plane. So yeah, it can make it quite tricky for cutting. Okay, so we've gone through the emerald cuts and the cushions. Now, shall we move on to the next parcel, which is the ovals. Now, as I mentioned, I would have expected, you know, with most colored stones to see mostly ovals, but as we were talking about before, when you have this kind of nice straight-edged, you know, very kind of bladed, quite symmetrical crystals, and you can even see as we look down here at the cross-section of the crystal actually already looks a bit like a very flat gemstone. So you can see that, yeah, it's got the little keel line running down there. That would be your table across there. So the shape is quite conducive for a good yield, if a little flat. So that's what makes these stones quite nice, is that even though, you know, you get these very flat tabular, well, not tabular, bladed crystals, we are still getting nice deep proportions, nice, you know, well-cut stones that don't have big windows. So always a plus when the stones coming from the rough, you know, could easily be very flat. So yeah, good to see no windows in these ones. But let's try the ovals now. Okay, now straight away I can see a couple of these ones. They tend to be a little bit more, almost like a slightly purple tint to them, a slightly pinky purple tint, and a little bit less green. Now, I would have to say that I reckon that these ones, actually, yeah, these three that I pulled out first, are quite likely going to have the best color change, or at least the best chance of being color change Diaspore, as opposed to more of a color shift. And given that we call this variety color change Diaspore, you would be hoping that we get a few good color changes in here. Last one. Okay, so there we have it. This is the oval parcel. Oh, there's some nice pieces there, and you can see the first three along the row there. So these little ones here, you can see the color is quite different to something, say, like the one next to it here, which has definitely got that green. But these ones here look like they're getting a little bit of that color change just from the mixed lighting that we have in the studio here. So there is quite a bit of variation. So, in these sort of pieces of rough, you can definitely see that, standard kind of olive green color. But as you start looking at the pieces in the tray here, there is some variation in there. But let's keep moving forward. The next largest parcel is 7 pear cuts. Let's see how these look. Now these all look like they're quite elongated pears, so not the standard proportions. These are, I quite like the long pear cuts. Yeah, they're quite an elegant sort of feel to them. Generally any long gemstone has quite an elegant feel, so you do have to be a little bit careful when it comes to setting a long elegant pear cut like this, just because it is a long, skinny item, and that could be conducive to cracking. And when you have something that does have a very strong cleavage plane, like a Diaspore, you generally do want to be quite careful when it comes to setting the pieces, because you wouldn't want to crack them along that cleavage plane. It obviously depends on what orientation the cleavage plane is to the rest of the stone, but it always pays to be careful with this kind of cut. And even more so when it is a stone that does have, quite defined cleavage like this stone does. Okay, so now that is all the pear cuts. So I've put the 2 larger ones in the middle there facing each other, just because I thought we might get a matched pair, but although the cut is reasonably similar, we don't quite have the color match that I was hoping for. But still a very nice parcel there. And again, you can start to see which of the stones look like they're going to have better color change. The ones that we can see already have that little bit of pinky purple shining through. But very nice. And last but not least, we have the mixed parcel. So we got a couple of round cuts and one little square cut by the look of it. Now again, with this kind of shaped rough, you might expect to see not so many rounds, and that is the case here. But yeah, it looks like, what have we got? So now we've got it's kind of a mixed cut on the bottom there. I don't know if you can see that. So we have a step cut, but almost mixed with a little bit of a brilliant cut on the bottom. I don't know if you can see, so we've got those little triangular facets on the edge, but then we've got step cuts underneath. And then we've got a round brilliant cut on top. Very much a true mixed cut on this one. In fact, I can't even remember really seeing one like that before, with the triangle facets and the step cut underneath. So yeah, very interesting that one. The square cut, not quite perfectly square, but it's more of like a sort of scissor sort of princess cut, I guess, rather than the step cut underneath. And again, you can see that nice sparkle coming through. All right, well, there you have it. We have all 60 or so pieces. Now I have to try and pick a favorite. I mean, as I said before, I'm usually quite attracted to the emerald cuts. I do like the square emeralds, but we've got one piece here. It's just the absolute classic emerald cut. Now, with some of these other ones, you know, the proportions can be a little different. So, you know, usually we're looking for that, you know, 8x6, 7x5, 6x4. Those are the traditional gemstone cuts. Again, in these sort of stones, these are all going to be free size. So generally you're going for weight rather than those ideal proportions. Though they do have the ideal depth proportions, the length and the width are going to be a little bit different because we want to get that maximum size, but without sacrificing beauty, which would be, you know, if we're making them too shallow. So I think that I'm going to have to go with that one. It does have a slight inclusion in it, but this is a good example to show how we can hide the inclusion by putting it perpendicular to the table. So it actually has a little cleavage. Let's see if we can show that one. We might have to get a real close-up to be able to show this. Now it's just that real kind of classic emerald cut with this one, with nice big shoulders on the stone. So those cut off corners, sometimes, you know, to get a little bit more weight, there'll be very tiny, tiny little edges on there. Whereas this one has quite defined, quite a defined octagonal cut to it. So really is just like a really superb example of a nice emerald cut. So I think of the parcel, this is probably going to be my favorite one. But, as I did say, we're going to have to try with the two different light sources and see if we can get any kind of color change. Now, I think this might be a little bit bright for what we're, with our light setup here, but we'll try it first and then maybe we'll do some close-ups. So, you can see here we've got the green color coming through in the more daylight equivalent. That's all fairly consistent. Let's see if we can get this to be a little more angled towards the camera. Oh, there we go. Move these out the way. Bring this back. So there's your green. Let's try over this one. Yeah, now there you go. Now you can start to see, especially as I said with these lighter colors, like you see this little guy here. Definitely got some pink going on that one. Yeah, we've got a nice little bit of color change in there. So which is going to be the best color change? Well, I think these little ones at the top here. So if you look at that guy there, nice bit of pinky purple, and back to green. But there you go. So this is the first lot of our color change Diaspore slash Zultanite slash Czarite parcel after cutting. Now, I hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, please hit the subscribe button, please hit the like button, it always helps out. And we hope to bring you more of these videos. And if you have any requests for any kind of other gemstones that you'd like to see unboxed, we can always do our best to see what we can find, and hope to see you next time. Have a good one. Cheers.